This was a negotiation of having a gun to your head. It's totally unacceptable. It will be the Premier's decision to call an election during this pandemic.
I am going to be thinking about this now over the weekend about what the next step should be. But it's this has made the path forward, I guess, well, one could say clearer, one could say more difficult, but I think clearer.
Okay, so believe it or not, New Brunswick could be heading to the polls. Liberal leader Kevin Vickers has rejected an unprecedented deal by the Higgs government to avoid a snap provincial election during the COVID-19 pandemic. The province's political leaders met for 3 straight days of intense negotiations, but clearly it did not go in the favor of Premier Blaine Higgs. For more on this, I'm joined by New Brunswick's provincial affairs reporter at the CBC. That's Jacques Poitras. Jacques, thank you for joining us. He's in Fredericton tonight.
Hi, David.
I want to start with what was the deal that Premier Higgs was looking for that made everyone so mad?
This is a deal that was driving the parliamentary experts nuts because he wanted all 4 parties in the legislature to sign on to a confidence and supply agreement for 2 more years. Everyone would agree not to trigger an election, including the Premier himself, who's very high in the polls right now, in return for some input on policy. And he also wanted them to set a general direction for the economy that would last even if there were a change in government in 2 years. It wasn't clear what role the opposition would play if they would oppose anything, because the deal would include everyone. So it had a lot of people scratching their heads, but that was what Higgs put on the table, and the opposition parties kind of don't want a campaign because he's ahead in the polls. So that was what was on offer.
When you look at the terms that he put, I think it's kind of easy to understand why Liberal leader Kevin Vickers walked away. But what did he say about his reason for just refusing to sign on with this?
Well, you know, at the start of the week, Vickers called this offer the right decision because no one wants an election. But there were signs within his caucus of extreme discomfort with signing anything with Higgs and with one of the other smaller parties, which has questioned official bilingualism. That's a core Liberal value. We saw cracks in the caucus with MLAs saying they weren't sure they could sign on. One said, I do want an election. So the Liberal message was kind of fracturing. Officially, Vickers said he wasn't going to give Higgs a blank check for 2 years, hand him de facto majority when he's only in a minority government situation. But whatever the real reason internally within the caucus, it wasn't a go. And after a caucus meeting today, Vickers pulled out.
Okay, so no deal. What does the Premier do now?
The Premier says he's going to take the weekend to think about it. But he did say earlier in the week that if there wasn't a deal today, this was his deadline, he would probably call an election. Now, mathematically, he could make a deal with the other 2 parties and have a de facto majority and the stability he says he needs in the legislature during these crazy times. But he's really insisting he wanted all 4 parties because he says the Liberals would be still gunning for him, trying tricks and all that. So he said no election call in the next 48 hours. But as of Monday morning, I think we will be ready for a visit to the Lieutenant Governor.
You know, Jacques, we talked to your education minister on the show yesterday, Dominic Carty. Everyone's kind of crossing their fingers and hoping they can go back to school because of all of the uncertainty. I mean, how would you even run an election in the middle of a pandemic?
Well, Elections New Brunswick has a plan with masks and distancing and all that, but in New Brunswick law anyway, once the election starts, the Chief Electoral Officer has no authority to stop it. So if there's an outbreak, there's no way to stop the thing. You know, if they have to limit access to polling stations in one region and not the other, how is that fair and equitable voting? So there's a plan, but that plan really is vulnerable if there's things really go sideways with COVID-19.
Okay, Jacques, good luck, and thank you so much for the update.
Thanks, we'll need it.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.